automatic $2,000 monthly checks for the low income, and some new details. I have all the information and what you need to know right here in the video, so let's get right into it. I know in this video, I do want to share with you a concept that I've seen showing up in the headlines a number of times here over the last several months, where they are suggesting sending out a $2,000 ongoing monthly check specifically focused on the low income. Now, they continue to say that this would be the best solution and solve a lot of financial issues for a lot of low income individuals. Now, they would also suggest that this would be the best solution in replacement of a broad stimulus check for virtually everybody, like what we saw in early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021. This is a great idea and a great concept, which is exactly why I want to talk about it for you right here in this video and what all of this means, as well as all the parameters around this and why this is one of the best solutions that is out there right here, right now. We've got a lot to talk about here in the video. Let's get right into it. Really fast before we do, thanks so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe right down below the video. It's totally free to do so, and I'm here for you right by your side every single day, watching the latest details hitting the wire and breaking it all down into these short videos so you can stay posted on what is actually going on, and anything popping up right now you can possibly grab and or take advantage of. So again, thanks so much for joining me. I'm here for you in any way that I possibly can be. I truly want to help you out during this time. It's been very weird for the last few years, and realistically, it probably will be weird for the next several years as well, as we are going through a very weird time in this country and globally right here, right now. So again, please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and let's get into it and talk about this concept, all the details you need to know about it, and how this could be the next approach going forward, because they continue to say, after all the reports and studies that they conducted after the 3 stimulus checks that we got in 2020, in 2021, those checks that we got, a lot of studies were conducted about that, and they learned a lot about those checks that went out, okay? Then the $850 billion that were sent out in those 3 stimulus checks, they learned a lot of information about that and the behaviors of people as far as who needs the money, who doesn't need the money, and the best options for who should get the money going forward in the future. Because remember, as I've said before in other videos, the whole point of stimulus checks is to stimulate the economy, okay? That's the purpose behind them, okay? Well, if we take that into consideration and we look at all the reports and studies that were conducted as a result of those 3 stimulus checks, we know a lot of information now, okay? We know that a lot of people don't need the checks, and we know that if we send these checks out highly focused on the low income and the people that actually need the money versus just want the money, it's a big, big difference there. Higher income people don't need it, low income people do, and these are the ones that actually give us the results that we're looking for as a result of stimulus checks, okay? Pretty interesting stuff here. I want to share all the details with you. Now, you might be wondering really quickly, why $2,000? Why not $1,200? Why not $1,600? Why not $2,400? Why not $3,000? Great question. Let me point out the details about this. They found that $2,000 on an ongoing monthly basis, specifically focused on low-income individuals, actually gives us the best result as far as exactly what we are looking for, okay? As far as the best solution, as far as economic expansion, economic stimulus, all kinds of things like this, they find that the lowest income people getting $2,000 on an ongoing monthly basis gives them exactly what they're looking for. It's actually a very well done report. Let me break down all the details of this. All right, so there's an acronym that I want to talk about here in this video. In fact, to be fair with you, yep, I've talked about this acronym before in other videos, but I want to bring this to your attention because this is something they continue to come back to in this one as well, in these reports here. And again, this is a very important concept, okay? It is MPC, marginal propensity to consume. Now, that's just a really smart way of saying, if you give everybody $2,000, high income, middle income, low income people, who spends it, who saves it, what do they do with it? Here's what they found. Low income people have a high marginal propensity to consume. In other words, the $2,000 that is given to these people, they spend about 80+% of it within 10 days. That's exactly what they want, okay? They found that with middle income people, they have a medium marginal propensity to consume. So in other words, you give these people with a middle income or medium income $2,000, they spend, about half of it in a short amount of time, and then they save the other half. It's not really good, and it's honestly not really bad either. It's just kind of right in the middle, not really what they're looking for either. Now here's what they also found. Taking high income people have a very low marginal propensity to consume. In other words, You give a high income person $2,000 and they sit there and they save it and they hold on to it and they do nothing with it at any speed, okay? In other words, the complete opposite of what they actually want to be done with this. They do not want people to save money. When it comes down to stimulus and stimulus checks and stuff like that, they do not want that money saved. In fact, that is the complete opposite. The whole point of stimulus checks is to spend it. That's why they send those checks out. They give us stimulus checks and they say, spend this money. Please spend the money. Even though they, may come out and say, well, do what you got to do. Pay down bills, whatever you need. No, realistically, what they're really saying is spend it, please. Spend the money as fast as you can. That's what they're trying to tell us to do with it, because that is how they stimulate the economy. Well, they found with all these studies over the last few years here that those individuals who have a high income, when they get stimulus, what they do is they save it. They maybe pay down bills, and if they spend any of it, they spend it very slowly, and they only spend a little bit of it over a long period of time. Again, wrong answer. That's not what we're looking for here. We are not looking for people to hold on to the money. We're not looking to pay down bills. We're not looking to spend it over long periods of time. We're looking to spend it fast, and we're looking to spend the vast majority of it as quickly as we can. That is the point of stimulus. Get it into the economy quickly for goods and services. That's the point behind it. So, long story short, what they found with these studies is that high-income people, they don't really serve a purpose when it comes down to stimulus, okay? Middle income people, well, they're kind of like right in the middle on everything, okay? They don't spend it fast. They spend a little bit of it. They spend about half of it. They spend it kind of slow. They spend a little bit kind of fast. They're kind of right in the middle. They don't really have, like a good purpose, and they don't really have a bad purpose. They're just kind of right in the middle. However, they did find low income people. This is the best solution, because here's what they found. Low income people have a high marginal propensity to consume. In other words, they take $2,000, they spend 80% of it, or $1,600, $1,600, within about 10 days. Now again, that's just an average that they found there, okay? Now obviously not everybody spends $1,600. Some spend all of it, some spend less, but the average was 80% within 10 days was spent by low-income people. So here's what they're finding from this report here. They continue to find that, hey, in the future, we may not need to send out $850 billion plus in stimulus checks out to 85% of the population. We may not need to do that. We could accomplish the same thing by sending out a fraction of the amount of money to a smaller group of lower income people and get the same effect without all of the inflation. You see the differences here? Because here's what happened. In early 2020, late 2020, and early 2021, they sent out, like I said, almost $1 trillion, over $850 billion in stimulus checks to 85% of the population. We saw a lot of inflation after that. We saw a lot of supply chain issues. How many times did you go to your local grocery store or your local department store or something like that, and you see aisles and aisles of empty shelves? Do you remember those days? Yeah, it was a real thing. There were pictures posted on social media all over the place. We were all talking about it. There was a lot of things you could literally not get for like months and months. Do you remember all that a couple years ago? That was a real thing. It really did happen. Why? Because everybody had money and everybody was trying to spend it on the same thing. Well, what do you think's going to happen there? If everybody's trying to buy the same thing, there's only so much supply to go around. Therefore, there's more demand than supply, driving prices higher, simple economics, and supply is gone. There's no supply there's not enough supply to fulfill all the demand, okay? Which is why inflation goes up, because now you can demand a higher price for things, because that's just how inflation works, and that's how supply and demand works, right? More demand over supply means prices must go up, right? So anyway, just a little economic lesson for you there, right there, okay? So anyway, so what they found with this is that rather than spending another $850+ billion next time around, they could spend a fraction of that, a couple $100 billion, focused on $2,000 ongoing monthly checks for the low income, and these people they know would spend 80+% of the money relatively quickly, 10 days or less. 80% of that money would be spent in the economy, giving us the same solution, the same economic impacts, the same economic stimulus that we're looking for, but yet without all of the adverse effects like supply chain issues and outages of different things all around the stores, because that money would only be going to the lowest income individuals, and it wouldn't be all spent on the same old things like toilet paper, right? Let's be real, right? We all remember those days, right? There were all kinds of funny jokes and memes and stuff like that all over online. But that's what it came down to, right? So when they talk about it, they're saying, hey, these low-income people, there's maybe 40, 50 million of them in a country where there's, say, 334 million people. It's a very small percentage of our population, respectively, right? 50 million people versus, what was it, 285 million people that got stimulus checks the last few years here. So there's a big, big difference. You send out more money per person for a smaller group of people, and you don't have all the issues that we dealt with over the last couple of years here with all of these supply issues, supply chain, demand issues, inflated prices, all kinds of stuff like that. So do you kind of see what I'm saying here with all these details about this? Very, very interesting report. And again, this is what came out of all the stimulus checks that went out in 2020 and 2021. All of that money that went out, a lot of studies were conducted. They tracked all that money to see who's spending it, who's saving it, what's going on here, okay? Well, here's what else is interesting about this. One thing that they've said, now again, I do not buy into the idea that all the inflation that we got in 2021, 2022, and basically still now, I do not buy into the idea that all of that was caused by stimulus checks. I don't, because they printed $6 trillion of money, and about $850 billion of it was in the form of stimulus checks. So that still leaves us, call it, what, $5.15 trillion of other money that's not accounted for. So again, I don't completely buy into that. However, they did find as well that a lot of people who didn't necessarily need a stimulus check but got it anyway saved it. And then guess what happened? The inflation was prolonged because people who didn't need the money immediately stashed it away, saved it, or did whatever with it. And then that money was eventually deployed at some point over the next year, year and a half, 2 years, something like that. So we saw this prolonged inflation because a lot of people started pulling all that money out eventually and said, hey, I'm going to go start buying this. I'm going to go start buying that. And prices remained elevated because that cash didn't work through the system relatively quickly because it was all stored away. Like a squirrel going into winter, right? Store a bunch of nuts, and you never know. Someday you'll need to pull those things out, right? So, just like a good squirrel, right? So anyway, my point is, this is what they're talking about, and this is what they've said. I've seen this report coming up a few times here over the last several months here. I find it to be very interesting, and the details that I want to share with you, because this may be the next approach, another hybrid approach going into money and checks and stimulus going out in the future, because they're quickly and easily finding here, we don't need to send out as much money as we did. It doesn't really give us the effects that we're looking for, right? But rather, if they could spend a fraction of the amount of money, call it 200 billion, 250 billion, maybe 300 billion versus 850 billion, and get the same effect or even better without all of the adverse consequences, well then, hey, we just had a huge win, right? So anyway, this is what they're talking about, and of course, I'll continue watching this very closely. As I do get more details on any of it, I'll bring it to your attention right away. So again, please subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet. Leave your comments, your questions, your feedback down below. Otherwise, share this video with your friends from my social media so they can also see what's going on out there. And of course, go back and check out any of the other thousands of videos here on the channel. Until next time, enjoy your day, take care, have a good one, and catch you again later.